If you've ever found yourself lying awake at 2 a.m. replaying a conversation that happened 3 years ago, you know how exhausting it feels. You're mentally editing your words, sharpening your retorts, or cringing at a joke that didn't land quite right. To everyone else, that interaction ended the moment you walked away. But for you, the conversation is still happening. It's looping over and over, like a film you're trying to edit into a masterpiece long after the cameras have stopped rolling. Most people will tell you that you're just overthinking. They might tell you to just let it go, or remind you that no one else even remembers what you said. But that advice usually fails because it ignores the underlying reality. Replaying conversations isn't a glitch in your brain. It's a sophisticated, deeply rooted psychological response. It isn't just about being socially anxious or sensitive. It's actually a search for something much deeper. When we replay a conversation, we are rarely looking for the truth of what happened. Instead, we are looking for safety. In psychology, this is often a form of proactive coping gone into overdrive. If you grew up in an environment where you had to be hyper-aware of other people's moods, perhaps to avoid conflict or to earn approval, your brain developed a high-frequency radar. You learned early on that saying the wrong thing had consequences. So now, as an adult, your mind returns to the scene of the crime to perform a forensic audit. You're scanning for errors because in your internal logic, finding the error is the only way to prevent a future catastrophe. It often looks like a harmless habit, but it's actually a form of emotional time travel. You're trying to change the past to secure the future. You think that if you can just figure out exactly where the vibe shifted or why that person looked at you that way, you'll be better prepared next time. You're trying to solve a puzzle that doesn't actually have all the pieces. This behavior usually points to a specific identity pattern, the belief that your worth is tied to your performance in real time. If a conversation feels imperfect, you feel imperfect. This is why the replay feels so urgent. It's not just about the words said, it's about the person you fear you were perceived to be. You're trying to fix your identity in someone else's mind, even if that person isn't even thinking about you. But here is where it gets interesting. The real reason you replay conversations isn't actually about the other person at all. It's about a need for control. In the moment of a live conversation, things are messy. They are unpredictable. You can't control how you are perceived, and you can't control how the other person reacts. That lack of control is deeply uncomfortable for someone who relies on external validation for internal peace. So the replay is your brain's attempt to regain that lost control. In the safety of your own head, you have the final edit. You have the perfect comeback. You have the calm, cool demeanor you wish you'd had at the coffee shop or in the meeting. The replay is a simulated environment where you are finally the one in charge of the narrative. However, there's a hidden cost to this mental editing. When we spend our energy auditing the past, we start to view every new interaction as a potential case study rather than a human connection. We stop listening to understand and start listening to survive. We become so focused on how we are being recorded by the other person's brain that we forget to actually be present in the room. This pattern is often a lingering echo of hyper-vigilance. If you were a child who had to grow up too fast, or if you were the peacekeeper in your family, you likely learned that reading the room was a survival skill. You had to know if the atmosphere was tense before you even opened your mouth. Replaying conversations is just the adult version of that survival mechanism. It's your brain trying to protect you from a threat that no longer exists. It's a shield you're still carrying even though the war ended years ago. You might notice that you don't replay every conversation. You only replay the ones where you felt vulnerable, or the ones with people whose opinions feel like a verdict on your character. This is the identity impact. The replay happens when there's a gap between who you want to be and how you think you were seen. You think, if I can just understand why I said that, I can prove to myself that I'm not actually that person. It's an exhausting cycle because the perfect version of the conversation doesn't exist. There is no version of that interaction that will finally make you feel safe, because the safety you're looking for can't be found in the past. It's not about the words you used, it's about the pressure you put on yourself to be flawless in a world that is inherently flawed. Recognizing this pattern isn't about fixing your brain or forcing yourself to stop thinking. It's about understanding that your mind is trying to do you a favor. It's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to ensure you're never rejected or misunderstood again. But once you realize that the replay is just an old survival script, the volume starts to turn down on its own. You begin to see that a conversation isn't a performance to be graded. It's just a moment in time, brief, imperfect, and already gone. The version of you that exists in someone else's head is something you can never truly edit, and more importantly, it's something you don't actually need to manage. When you catch yourself in the loop tonight, remember that the replay isn't a sign that you did something wrong. It's just a sign of how much you care about being understood. It's a remnant of a version of you that had to be careful, but you don't have to be that careful anymore. The conversation ended when you left the room, and it's okay to let it stay there. Once you see the replay for what it really is, a search for control in an uncontrollable world, you can't unsee it. It was never about the words, it was always about the pattern, and understanding that pattern is the first step toward finally getting some sleep. If this explained something for you, there's more to uncover about the way your mind protects itself. Understanding yourself isn't a project to be finished, it's the beginning of everything.